If you are new to the channel, the introductions are always at the end of these videos. For now, special thanks to our Patreons at the time of filming. Let's grab our Red Bull, grab your visual representation of the seal combo charts in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, yes that one's real, and let's get into it. In our last video, we changed several of our variables back to public from private. This does mean, however, that other scripts in the project now have access to these variables. And access means players can change them and create cheat codes. Maybe we don't want that to happen. For example, can jump. Do we really want other components to be able to decide whether our player can jump? Or do we only want our player controller component to decide whether or not our player can jump? To do that, we're going to change this one back to private. And now once we save, we will lose the serialized field in the editor, so we can't edit it there anymore. What if we still want to serialize that even though it's private? This is when we use another attribute called serialize field. This means that even though our variable is private, it will still serialize in the editor. The editor can see it and the editor will serialize it. But other scripts now can't use it. Only itself can use it. Now, I want this method jump to be called during gameplay. I don't want to have to right-click the component in the editor. So we're going to get rid of this context menu attribute, and we're going to use another technique instead. This method is called update. Now update is one of the methods that come with mono behavior by default, and you will notice it was one of the methods that we actually deleted when we created the class in the first place. Now update runs every single frame. So for example, whatever is written within this body of code is going to happen hundreds of times a second. This kind of lends an idea to how crazy and how powerful even simple games are. This is just a player controller, and I'm going to put code in this update body, and it's going to be read and actioned hundreds of times a second. If you look at other games like Baldur's Gate, every single game object probably has not just one, but multiple components that are all running incredibly populated update methods, and still managing to do it hundreds of times a second. What we're going to put here in our update is going to happen every single frame, and I can actually show you what that looks like by using a debug.log and saying update called. Now when I enter play mode in Unity, we see that we get our debug.log call a bunch of times. If I end play mode now, we see that we got the message more than 999 times in those few seconds. If I hit the collapse button over here, I can actually see how much exactly we called the method. The update method was called 3,407 times in that quick little playtest. So we need to be very careful about what we add to this update method, because if we add something taxing, that method is going to be called 3,407 times in about 3 seconds, which is definitely not good. What we do want, however, is to use this update to check for an input. We want the system to wait until the player presses the spacebar, and then have the player jump. When you're writing out methods, it's always a good idea to use comments to fill out exactly what you want the method to do, and then fill in the actual code underneath. What we want to do is we actually want to watch until the player presses the spacebar, and then have the player jump. So to do that, we're going to use an if statement. An if statement is very simply a keyword if, and then a parentheses. And then underneath that parentheses, we have curly brackets. Now inside these parentheses, we see we have an error. That's because we haven't put anything inside these brackets. What we want to put here is an expression, and if that expression is equal to true, then the code inside this body will run. If it's equal to false, it won't run, and the game will skip right over this body of code. So if can jump is equal to true, we're going to call our jump method, adding in our invoking parentheses. When entering a bool into an if statement, you don't have to type out the full expression, bool is equal to true. You actually can just remove this part here, and it will just read the value of the bool. If the bool is equal to true, it will run. If the bool is equal to false, it will skip. There is a difference between equals and equal to in coding. Equals is setting or defining it, equal to, the two equal symbols in a row, is asking if it's true. There are situations where you might want to invert this bool. So at the start of the bool, you can actually put in an exclamation mark, and now it's going to do the opposite. So this is saying if this is equals to false, it will run, and if it's equal to true, it will skip. That's how we're going to explain if statements, but for now we just want to see if the player is pressing the spacebar. Now to do that, we're going to use the input system in Unity. So we're going to type input.getKeyDown. This is a method that checks for when we push a button down, and it takes in a key code. The key code we're giving in this case is going to be keycode.space. So this means if we are pressing the spacebar, the frame that the spacebar goes down, this method will be equal to true. We want to jump. Now you see here I've written jump similar to a reference to our method. If I write it without the invoking parentheses, I actually get an error because it's not calling the method, it's just referring to it. So when I'm calling this method, I need to make sure that I'm invoking it by inserting the parentheses as well. So now during our update, when we press space, it's going to call our jump method, then it's going to go to that body of text, and it's going to run it. So let's put in debug so we know exactly what's happening and where. So debug.log, we have pressed space. We see that I have pressed space, and we see we have our debugs to make that true. Make the player jump, can our player jump? The player has jumped as many units, we have jumped 0 times, congratulations. So that's how we use an if statement, and that's how we call a method. Again, with if statements, if the if statement only contains one line of code, you actually don't need the squiggly brackets, and you can just do it like this, with a little indentation as well, to help keep your code clean. Thank you for watching, everybody. My name is Taryn Game Dev, I'm a game developer, and my game is Tales of Tall Rest. The amount of attention and support it is getting allows me to make videos like this. If you want, you can go and check out the game on itch.io, follow me on Instagram to see all the updates and how the game is going, and if you'd like to support me, you can support me for even $1 or buy me Red Bull once a month over on my Patreon in order to get all these videos weeks before they come out here on YouTube. Thank you so much, guys.